Hi everyone, Vanessa and Marcel here. We're with the agency and we wanted to introduce you guys to Amy Oakden, who is our trust attorney and somebody that we use personally.
Yeah, so we're putting together an educational series to expose our clients to a lot of the challenges that we face in the back end in the marketplace. And one of the biggest challenges we have is when a deal that we have goes to probate, or they thought it was under the trust and it was improperly placed under the trust. So today you guys are going to be introduced to an amazing attorney in the Temecula area, but she services all Southern California. Amy, she's our personal attorney, and she's gonna answer a few questions for us and see what we can do. Good morning, Amy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you. So,
It's
a
good to
lot of
see you.
times, thanks, of course. A lot of times, we don't know what we don't know until we get into escrow and we get the title, the prelim comes back, and then we realize there's a problem. So, what we want to chat about is a little bit of that and how to make sure our clients and people viewing this protect themselves. So, you want to start with?
Yeah. So my when my father passed away, we were younger and he made sure that he got a will done. And a lot of people don't really know the difference between a trust and a will, and they think, "Oh, I have a will, that I'm set and I'll be good." So why should homeowners consider having a trust versus a will, and why is that important?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I like to think of the trust, and here we're specifically talking about the most common type of trust, which is a revocable living trust. I like to think of that as a will substitute. So with a will and a trust, you can say who gets all of your assets when you die. But if you only have a will, the will does not avoid probate. The will actually directs the probate court what to do with your assets. It has to go through probate. But if you have a trust, everything stays private, no court intervention is required. And then the trust directs the trustee how to distribute all of your assets when you die. Biggest reasons people want to avoid probate are number one, the cost. So in California, we estimate that it costs about 5% of the gross value of all of your assets to have to go through that court probate process. The process is public, so that means anybody can go online and see what's happening in a probate case. So, zero privacy for your beneficiaries. And then probate is a long, drawn out process. And I'm sure that's where you guys get affected the most is when you're stuck in an escrow that has a house that's in probate. It takes about 12 to 18 months on average in California and could take even longer than that if there's any type of issue, or it's really just dependent on what the court's calendar is. So there's no way to just rush it along.
Problem with a lot of our clients, the question that keeps popping up is if it's not properly put in a probate and the property owner passes, I'm sorry, if it's not properly put in a trust and the property owner passes, the heirs are have to pay taxes. So how does that work if it's not in the trust, they got to go to probate, but taxes are due? How does that timeline work for everybody?
So if taxes are due, they have to get paid by somebody. Whoever pays the taxes will eventually get reimbursed, hopefully, if there's enough equity in the house to reimburse them as part of that probate process. But we see that happen all the time where there's family members scrambling to not only pay their own regular bills, but also to pay utilities, taxes, insurance, mortgage on this extra home while they're waiting to get court authority to sell the house in probate.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and when you have a trust, all of that, the bank account in the trust and the home in the trust is the trustee has access to it almost immediately to be able to do those things, and no family members are having to pull out of their own pocket.
So now, what happens if somebody has a trust? Like, we have somebody that you were chatting with recently. They have a trust, mom had a trust, didn't transfer the property into it. So what happens in that situation?
So we see that unfortunately happen a lot because a big misconception with estate planning is it's the documents that matter, right? Like, oh, I can go online, I can fill in the blanks, and I've got this beautiful trust. But the trust isn't enough. It's all of the things that happen after you have the trust that are the biggest part of having that full comprehensive estate plan. And one of those things is funding the trust. And what we mean when we talk about funding a trust is retitling assets that can be titled in the name of the trust. The big one is the home. Also, bank accounts can be retitled to actually be owned by the trust. And then with beneficiary designations, so those would be assets like life insurance, retirement accounts, where you can name beneficiaries. You can name the trust as either a primary or contingent beneficiary. But however you do it, it's just important to make sure that it aligns with your estate plan. So what we see happen a lot is somebody will have a trust either prepared by an attorney or they did it online themselves, and they think that's where you stop. And then we find out later, usually when it's too late, that the home hasn't been transferred into the trust. And then you're still ending up in probate with that home. Sometimes we are able to use a shortened petition if there was intent that the home was supposed to be in the trust. But unfortunately, it still does require time and money of going through probate. It's just a little bit of a shorter process.
That leads us to our next question. The common mistakes homeowners make after buying, selling, refinancing a home that takes place there. So a lot of times people take it out of the trust to refinance, right?
Yeah, that's a huge issue that we see. We're seeing lenders do a little bit of a better job lately because of the issues that happened in the past with that. But what was happening is typically when you refinance your home, if you have a trust, the home should already be titled in the name of the trust. And then when you go to refinance, most of the time the lender will require that the home be put back into your individual name to get the loan. And then after, they should put the home back into the trust. But if they don't and you never catch that mistake, then if you die, the home is no longer in the trust and it ends up having to go through probate. So yeah, that's one of the things first of all, we always recommend reviewing your estate plan. We do a review with our clients every 3 years just so we can catch mistakes like that. And then we also just advise clients that there are a lot of different life events that can trigger maybe just doing a quick review of your estate plan, like divorce, death, a new baby. But refinancing is also one of those events, just so we can do a quick title search and make sure that everything was done properly when the refinance is complete.
Well, other than avoiding the probate, what are other reasons that? Like, a lot of people that we deal with, they're like, "Oh, I'm just a normal guy. I don't need a trust. I don't have a ton of assets. I don't have so many things." So, what are some reasons to have it then to?
So other than probate, well, first of all, I just want to address I don't have a ton of other assets. Your home is usually your biggest asset, especially here in California. And because I do hear people say that all the time. They're like, well, I just have a house. I don't really need a trust. I'm not wealthy. But you have even more to lose than somebody who's wealthy because it's just that equity in the home that you're trying to pass down to your family. So why give that away to that probate process when you don't have to? But then to answer the other part of your question, what are some other reasons to have a trust? Basically, just so you have a clear documentation of how you want things to go after you die, and also when you're incapacitated. So a lot of people don't understand that a trust usually and should have incapacity provisions in them that state who is going to be responsible for managing their trust assets if they can't do it anymore. So that would be like if you have dementia or other type of cognitive issue where you can no longer handle your own financial affairs, that trust does dictate what happens to your assets during that time as well.
All right. Can you give us a real life example of how failing to properly fund a trust created unnecessary stress, expense, etc. for the family?
Yeah, I think we talked about one where, the people thought that mom had a trust, but she did have the trust and the trust was valid, but the home was never put into it. So they ended up in probate. And we see that happen all the time. I have another trust administration case right now where the person had a trust. They had it done about 20 years before she died. There were some things in the trust, but then there were other things like retirement accounts that did not have a beneficiary listed on them. And then those also ended up in probate court. So even though we have a trust and we're administering the trust just fine, we ended up in probate court. And I think that one, we are still working on closing that one up. And we're going on about 3 years right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we have another trust registration case right now where I think we're going to have about 3 properties that are going through probate,
Oh,
even though he had a trust.
yeah, that's awful. Um, so us as realtors and other realtors out there that are watching this video, what are some things that we need to be listening for that can maybe be a key indication of plan to have estate plan review or update?
So yeah, if they already say, like, when they're going through escrow, they'll use the escrow as part of that escrow process. You have to find out how they're going to take title, right? So if they're like, oh yeah, we already have a trust, we want to put it in our trust, great, that's a good first step. But then you can ask them, like, oh, how long ago did you have it done? When was the last time you had it reviewed? If it's been a really long time, and even if it's been over 3 years since they kind of opened it up and took a look at it, I would recommend them to go either see their attorney that they were already working with, or if they're not comfortable with that person, find a new attorney to review it for them. And it may be that they don't need any changes, but at least they have that peace of mind of having the review, understanding how it works, and hopefully knowing that nothing needs to be done to it. Because what I see a lot in reviews, even reviews with my own clients where we do those 3-year reviews, when we're meeting and opening up everything again, they haven't looked at it for 3 years. So they don't really remember. It's not top of mind for them. And when we go through it again, most of the time they don't really need any changes, but they're like, oh yeah, okay, I remember now how that all works. I totally forgot that that's what we picked. So it's just a good idea to have that reminder of how everything is going to work when you pass away, and just making sure that it still aligns with what you want to happen when you do that review.
Mhm. Right. Um, every time we go out and we meet with buyers and are chatting with them, and we talk to them about, the importance of creating a trust and the importance of talking to a professional, because we're not professional in that field. They're not a professional in that field. So, you need to talk to Amy, get a trust, have the property properly placed in the trust. But we all know AI is everywhere. All these websites are everywhere. And what if somebody says, like, I guess, what's the risk of them going on Chat or going on Gemini or going on Claude or one of these and telling it to create a trust or going to LegalZoom or somewhere else? And I'm going to save money because I'm just going to go on with AI. I can create the trust myself. What are the risks with that?
So the risks involved with that, and first of all, I love AI. We use AI in our own practice to help us be more efficient for our clients and to try to keep the cost down as much as possible for them. So we're not spending needless hours doing something that AI can effectively replace. But I always say AI is only as good as what you put into it, right? So if you're a non-professional, maybe you're asking some of the right questions, but you're probably not asking it all of the right questions. So it might be able to kind of put together a good framework for you, but it's not going to uncover potential problems or potential for conflict down the road with your family. So that's something where you do truly need to work with a professional to really understand all of the nuances involved in estate planning, because estate planning is, again, really more than just a set of documents. It's about everything that goes into it afterward, and making sure that properties are properly titled in the name of the trust, making sure that the beneficiary designations align with what your overall plan is. That's another big one we see with beneficiary designations. Like, you might have a trust, but then you've named like minor children as beneficiaries on your life insurance and your retirement accounts. And that's still going to end up going through probate. So that doesn't align with your intent of avoiding probate. Or maybe your trust says one thing about how assets are supposed to be distributed, but you've named individual beneficiaries on life insurance or retirement, and you didn't want those people to receive those assets in that way. You wanted the trust to control it. Well, the trust doesn't control it if the trust isn't named as the beneficiary. So that's where we see the biggest pitfalls when somebody goes on AI or tries to do like a DIY estate plan. And does it save you money? Absolutely. It saves you money in that short term, but it's going to cost your family probably tens of thousands of dollars in the long term when they have to go back and fix whatever mistakes that weren't discovered during your lifetime. And then by the time those mistakes are discovered, it's too late.
Right. And I remember when you did our trust for us, one of the cool things that you did was you made it very simple. You gave us a little folder and it was like I guess a financial type packet, and it told us, okay, this bank account, you need to make sure that your beneficiary is listed at this. And for this one, you have to make sure your beneficiary is listed at that. So we literally walked into the bank with the paper, said, here, we need everything like this. And it was all handled. And it's good because then we know it's being done the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, with 23 years of selling real estate myself, you remember a lot of clients, and a lot of times the clients you remember, it's because of the devastation you went. I went to so many court cases where you went to the probate. But not only did you just bury a loved one, but now you got this entire mess. This is very important, tied along with proper life insurance, because a lot of people, the breadwinner passes, then there's no way to pay the mortgage.
Right.
And so those two have been so devastating in my career, to sit there and watching people sold beautiful homes to the breadwinner's gone. They didn't have life insurance because they're in their 40s and they thought, I'm going to live for another 30, 40 years. I don't necessarily need it. And then the paychecks start coming in, and you're three or four mortgages away from not making a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do is just make sure that whoever's watching this takes the time. It's painless. I did it. Amy had to deal with me. So if you know me, no. And another thing I'll bring up is I'll never forget it. On New Year's Eve, I went to get my mail, and it said my property address and had somebody else's name on it. And being a real estate professional, I knew immediately that somebody had changed my title. My home was no longer my home. And on New Year's Eve, I called Amy, panicking, level 10, because it's my home. There's actually equity in it, and it's no longer under my name. And Amy took care of that within days. And she's amazing.
And I just want to clarify, it wasn't me who made the mistake in the first place.
Right.
That definitely wasn't you. But, idle problems are an issue. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally one number.
Yeah, and that's all it was one number, and it kind of messed things up, but it was an easy fix.
For you. But any other questions?
Yeah. So if we come across somebody who has a trust, or if there's somebody who's been watching out there and they had a trust that was done a while ago, what are the top 3 things that they should check to make sure that the trust was done properly and it will be working properly when they need it?
So funding is the big one. So going through their assets, seeing how they're funded, doing a review of their beneficiaries to make sure that all the proper beneficiaries are named, and to make sure beneficiaries actually are named, because you'd be surprised at how many times we come across a client who's like, oh yeah, my wife or my kids are the beneficiaries. And then they go and check and there's no beneficiaries listed. Another one would be just making sure that the people that you have named in what we call fiduciary roles, so trustee, healthcare agent, power of attorney, that those are all the people who you still want to be in those roles, because those can be one of the things that gets outdated pretty quickly, because sometimes, like when our kids are little, we'll maybe name like a trusted friend. And then 10 years later, you're like, well, we never really hang out with that person anymore. Like we've kind of drifted apart. That's pretty common. So you don't necessarily want that person to be in charge of, handling your kids' finances when you die. And then the last one is still just making sure that the people that you've named as the beneficiaries in your trust, so like if it's your kids or family members or friends, that those are still the people that you want to receive all of your assets when you pass away. And making sure that however you're leaving it to them still makes sense. So there are so many different ways that you can leave assets to beneficiaries. You can pick outright, you can pick a certain age or ages, you can have a lifetime trust, you can have a special needs trust. So just making sure that whatever you chose in the beginning still works with how your life is working now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, for a lot of different families, the distribution is so important. Might have not the most responsible heir, right? If you want to make sure it's
right,
given to them nice and slow.
Yeah, or we see it the other way too, where Where like when the kids were little, you have no idea how they're going to be with money. So you're like, oh, we were going to leave it to them when they're 40. And then all of a sudden you've got like a 21-year-old kid who's like super responsible and in their career and they're fine. And then you might want to change it to be like, no, they can have it right away. So we see it go both ways.
Yes, let's wrap it up with what's the one piece of advice, estate planning advice, that you wish every realtor and every homeowner knew?
So the biggest advice I think is don't confuse having documents with having a plan. And I think that's kind of been the overarching theme of our whole conversation today is that the successful plan isn't just about signing paperwork or filling in the blanks on a document. It's really about making sure assets are titled properly, your beneficiary designations are coordinated with your plan, and that just making sure everything is spelled out in a way that it gives your family clarity and doesn't cause more confusion down the road.
So, real quick before we let you go, obviously you're in Temecula. We service the Temecula Valley and the Coachella Valley. So for our clients out this way, how do they get a hold of you? Do they come down to Temecula? How does that?
So yeah, we can actually serve clients, and we do serve clients anywhere in the state of California. If you're close by and you want to come meet us in person, we love that. But we're also able to serve clients virtually. The way that that would work is we do all of our meetings together on Zoom. But then the one in-person thing that has to happen is the signing, because there does have to be a notary present. California does not do virtual notary yet, like some other states. So the notary does have to come out to the home, and then I'm there on Zoom during the signing. So that's how we do that virtually.
Well, put your information at the bottom of this. Anything else you want to tell me before we let you go?
No, I don't think so, other than I appreciate being a guest on your show today. And I think it's great that as realtors, you're not just out there like selling homes and that's where you stop and start. Just love that you guys are being like true advisors to your clients and kind of putting those things in their head where maybe it's like not something that you can necessarily help them with, but you can guide them in the right direction. And I think that's really important as realtors because you are dealing with people with the most important purchase they're probably ever going to make in their lives. So they really do see you as a trusted advisor. So I think that's a great value that you're adding to your clients.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, if you want to get in touch with Amy and chat with her more about your trust and different ways that you could do, because they can be set up differently, let us know. We'll pass you along her information.
Yes, super easy to work with, and she's been wonderful. She handled both of ours, and as you heard the story, she fixes a lot of my mistakes. So thank you, Amy, for that. I appreciate,
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone,
Bye-bye.
for watching.